Did Jungkook almost walk away from music? And why did the golden Maknae finally admit it now? What really hid behind the silence, the smile, and the sudden burnout that shocked ARMY worldwide? What happens when the world's most celebrated golden Maknae quietly wonders if the very thing that made him global is the same thing draining him from the inside? Why would Jungkook, a name synonymous with perfection, discipline, and relentless passion, confess that he once wanted to distance himself from music? And why is this revelation delivered calmly and without dramatics, sending shockwaves through ARMY and the global pop industry right now? When Jungkook spoke to Rolling Stone Philippines in an exclusive interview published on January 6, 2026, the headline alone hinted that something deeper was unfolding. Jungkook, No Limits, sounded triumphant on the surface, yet buried within the conversation was a confession that felt raw, unsettling, and impossible to ignore. Jungkook admitted he had felt stuck, mentally exhausted, and overwhelmed to the point where music, his lifelong anchor, started to feel heavy rather than freeing. Was this simple fatigue, or was it the quiet cost of growing up under a microscope since the age of 15? For fans who have watched Jungkook evolve from a shy Busan teenager into a global icon, this moment felt like the curtain lifting on a truth long suspected but never confirmed. Could the pressure of BTS's unprecedented global success have demanded more than any teenager should ever carry? And if Jungkook, often seen as the strongest and most adaptable member, reached a breaking point, what does that say about the true weight of fame in the K-pop system? Jungkook's words did not arrive with tears or dramatic pauses. Instead, they came with unsettling calm. "I don't like the past," he said with a laugh while looking at older photos of himself. "I enjoy the present." To some, it sounded like maturity. To others, it sounded like a survival mechanism formed after years of being constantly observed, evaluated, and consumed by millions. Why would someone so successful want to distance himself from his own history? And what parts of that past was he quietly trying to leave behind? Born in Busan and thrust into Seoul's unforgiving trainee system at just 13 years old, Jungkook never experienced a normal adolescence. By 15, he debuted as BTS's Maknae, carrying expectations far beyond his age. While the world praised his vocals, dance skills, visuals, and work ethic, few questioned what it meant for a child to grow up with no privacy, no pause, and no room to fail. As BTS rose from underdogs to 21st century pop icons, Jungkook's life accelerated at a speed few adults could endure, let alone a teenager still discovering who he was. The interview revealed that after years of constant output with BTS, Jungkook reached a moment where everything felt repetitive and burdensome. He described feeling stuck, a word that immediately ignited speculation across fan communities. Stuck creatively? Stuck emotionally? Or stuck inside an image he could no longer fully recognize as his own? Some ARMY wondered whether this internal struggle had been quietly unfolding for years, hidden behind flawless performances and relentless professionalism. When Jungkook referenced the period before his solo breakout, the weight of his words became clearer. The global success of BTS, while historic, demanded relentless perfection. Albums, world tours, award shows, content releases, fan interactions, there was never a true off switch. Jungkook admitted that everything started to feel troublesome, a startling admission from an artist once known for calling music his entire life. Was this burnout inevitable? Or was it the result of a system that celebrates endurance without asking how much endurance costs? The turning point, according to Jungkook, came with Seven, his 2023 solo hit featuring Latto. The song didn't just dominate charts, including the Billboard Hot 100. It reignited something inside him. "Working on Seven felt like the most important and special moment for me," he revealed. Why did this song, out of everything he had done, pull him back from the edge? Was it creative freedom, the thrill of standing alone, or the realization that music could still be joyful if approached on his own terms? For many fans, this confession reframed Jungkook's solo era entirely. Seven was no longer just a catchy global hit. It became a lifeline, a moment where Jungkook chose to return rather than retreat. The song symbolized not just commercial success, but emotional reconnection. It raised an uncomfortable question. How close did Jungkook come to stepping away before that spark returned? The interview also shed light on Jungkook's evolving mindset. He spoke about living pragmatically, focusing on the present rather than the past or future. After years of having every phase of his life documented and dissected, this philosophy feels less like casual advice and more like a necessary boundary. When your teenage years, mistakes, and growth are preserved forever online, how do you move forward without being trapped by who you used to be? Jungkook's approach to self-care, while seemingly simple, revealed another layer of his inner discipline. He spoke casually about eating one meal a day while dieting, describing the sense of accomplishment he feels when he finally eats. To some listeners, it sounded routine. To others, it hinted at the strict control idols often impose on their bodies and lives. Is this discipline empowering for Jungkook, or is it another adaptation to an industry that demands constant self-regulation? Despite being a global ambassador for Calvin Klein and appearing unexpectedly at the brand's spring-summer show in Manhattan, Jungkook emphasized his preference for simplicity. Behind luxury campaigns and international headlines, he clings to routines that ground him. This contrast between global spectacle and personal minimalism raises an intriguing question. Is Jungkook intentionally shrinking his personal world to survive the enormity of his public one? His relationship with social media further complicates the narrative. Jungkook famously deactivated his Instagram in 2023, walking away from millions of followers without explanation. When he returned in July 2025, he posted nothing. No photos, no captions, no updates. Just presence without performance. Was this silence a statement? A reclaiming of control in an era where idols are expected to constantly share fragments of themselves. Instead, Jungkook chose Weverse as his primary connection with fans, often sharing unfiltered daily moments. One iconic live stream even ended with him falling asleep in front of millions, an accidental yet deeply human moment that fans still reference. In hindsight, these moments feel like quiet rebellions against perfection, subtle ways of reminding the world that behind the global star is a human being who gets tired, bored, and overwhelmed. The military hiatus added another unexpected layer to Jungkook's story. Serving 18 months as a military cook, far removed from stages and spotlights, he found something he didn't expect: renewed desire. When I'm not on stage, I try to keep my mind empty and avoid overthinking, he explained. For someone who once felt suffocated by constant output, the structured simplicity of military life became restorative. Could stepping away from fame, even temporarily, be the very thing that saved his relationship with music? As BTS prepares for their long-awaited return following mandatory military service, Jungkook's confession casts the reunion in a new light. Fans are no longer just anticipating new music. They are watching closely for signs of balance, health, and emotional sustainability. With BTS reportedly working on a new album in Los Angeles, expectations are sky-high. But now, there is also a quiet hope that the group's next chapter prioritizes longevity over relentless pace. The reaction from ARMY was immediate and intense. Rolling Stone Philippines' post about the interview garnered thousands of likes and reposts within hours. Fans flooded social media with mixed emotions: pride in Jungkook's honesty, concern about his mental health, and reflection on the pressures idols face. Some admitted they had long sensed exhaustion behind his eyes during recent performances. Others questioned whether fans themselves contribute to unrealistic expectations, even unintentionally. Speculation inevitably followed. Was Jungkook's burnout purely professional, or did it stem from deeper internal conflicts about identity, autonomy, and growing up too fast? Did he ever feel trapped by the golden Maknae label, an image that left little room for vulnerability or imperfection? And perhaps most unsettling of all, how many other idols feel the same but never say it out loud? Rolling Stone Philippines described the interview as an intimate look into Jungkook's post-military life, and the description feels accurate. The accompanying photographs, highlighting his iconic tattoos including the ARMY, inked on his hand, serve as visual reminders of his bond with fans. Yet even these tattoos take on new meaning in light of his confession. Are they symbols of gratitude, or anchors that tie him to a responsibility he carries every day. At 28 years old, Jungkook stands at a crossroads familiar to many artists who achieve success young. He is no longer the boy who debuted wide-eyed and eager, nor is he ready to fade quietly into the background. His admission of wanting to distance himself from music does not signal weakness. It signals self-awareness. In an industry that often punishes honesty, Jungkook chose transparency over silence. What does this mean for the future of Jungkook and BTS? Will their next era reflect the lessons learned during burnout and hiatus? Will Jungkook continue to redefine success on his own terms, balancing global impact with personal well-being? Or was this confession just the beginning of a deeper conversation the industry can no longer avoid? One thing is certain, Jungkook's words have changed the way fans listen. Every lyric, every performance, every quiet moment now carries added weight. When he sings about time, growth, and longing, audiences can no longer separate the art from the lived experience behind it. And perhaps that is the most powerful outcome of all. The golden Maknae did not step away from music in the end. Instead, he stepped back just long enough to remember why he loved it in the first place. But the question still lingers, unanswered and unsettling. If Jungkook had not found that spark again, how close was the world to losing one of its brightest voices without ever knowing why? And that unanswered question continues to echo, growing louder the more fans replay Jungkook's words. Because when someone like Jungkook admits he once wanted to step away from music, it forces a deeper reckoning not only with his personal journey, but with the entire machinery that shaped him. How many warning signs were overlooked because the performances were still perfect. How many moments of exhaustion were reframed as dedication, simply because the results remained extraordinary. For years, Jungkook was described as tireless. He was the member who stayed in the practice room the longest, who re-recorded vocals until dawn, who pushed himself physically and mentally beyond what was asked. That narrative, once celebrated, now feels dangerously incomplete. Was his relentless work ethic purely passion, or was it also fear? Fear of falling behind, fear of disappointing the members, fear of letting down millions who projected their hopes onto him. When Jungkook said that everything once felt troublesome, the word landed with unsettling simplicity. Not dramatic, not poetic, just honest. And that honesty cracked open years of carefully maintained distance between idol and audience. Fans began revisiting old interviews, old behind-the-scenes footage, old moments where Jungkook laughed a little too hard or went unusually quiet. Were those signs of someone slowly burning out, long before he had the language or permission to admit it? His solo track, My Time, from the 2020 album Map of the Soul, 7 now feels eerily prophetic. The song spoke about growing up faster than others, about losing time that could never be reclaimed. At the time, many listeners praised its maturity. Now, it reads like a confession hidden in plain sight. Was Jungkook already processing exhaustion and displacement back then, years before he finally acknowledged feeling stuck? The idea that global success can coexist with deep personal fatigue is not new, but Jungkook's case feels uniquely poignant because of how young he was when it all began. He did not choose fame as an adult with a fully formed sense of self. Fame chose him while he was still learning who he was. And once the world decided he was golden, there was little room left to be anything else. This is where fan speculation turns inward. Some ARMY have begun asking uncomfortable questions about their own role. When fans demand constant content, constant reassurance, constant interaction, does love quietly turn into pressure? Jungkook's tattoo of ARMY on his hand has long been interpreted as a symbol of devotion. But devotion, when combined with obligation, can become heavy. How does an artist balance gratitude with the need to breathe? Jungkook's military service, often viewed as a pause in BTS's trajectory, now appears almost symbolic. Stripped of his idol identity, wearing a uniform identical to thousands of others, performing a role far removed from global stardom, he experienced anonymity for the first time since childhood. Cooking meals instead of chasing charts, following routines instead of creating spectacles, he found clarity. That clarity, he admitted, reignited his desire to make music. Not because he had to, but because he wanted to. That distinction matters. Wanting versus needing. Choosing versus being expected. Jungkook's return to music after this period feels different, quieter in its confidence. It is no longer driven solely by ambition or momentum, but by intention. This shift could mark the most important evolution of his career. YET. AS BTS